On this week's episode of the WNP podcast, Brock Bowers is him. Stay tuned. Episode 183 of the We're Not Professionals podcast. I'm your host, Mike Mitchelson, and joining me today, as always, my co-host, Chase Crawshaw. Chase, how are you on this fine Monday evening?
I am doing swell. It's officially my team's off season, so I got a lot of free time. I'm sorry, I went to just shut the apps on my phone, and it just, like, apparently I had TikTok open. Sorry if you heard that loud noise there, but It's the start of my team's off season, so I've got a lot more free time. Was able to do some extra film today to be able to catch up. Since I kind of got behind the last 2 weeks, with us having to miss, because of some of my personal stuff. But I'm doing good. I'm really looking forward to having this free time. I think I talked about it in a previous episode. This is the time of year when I could really start diving into film, and I can really go back, critique more guys. I can get really, really in depth and have like a full big draft board. So I'm super excited.
Absolutely. And thankfully, it's not all bad that we missed last week. I was actually able to catch up a little bit. So now instead of watching like 10 guys for an episode, I'm able to watch a lot more. I'm ahead on the rankings that we've got coming out next week. So it's been good. The only thing is, with it being Monday, I would like for it to be Friday already.
That's fair.
Work was kind of slow, but I guess my work production was a little bit slow because not much was coming my way, but the day surprisingly went quick. So it was kind of a weird one. Usually those don't go hand in hand, but on today's episode, we are going to be doing our running back and tight end rankings. Both of these are interesting, to say the least. They're not up to par with the likes of the wide receivers, the quarterbacks, the offensive line. But we'll give you our full thoughts on the position groups before we actually dive into the rankings. But before we get there, we did want to take a brief free agent peek. A lot of stuff has been going down, and I don't want to talk about it too much because we do have two position groups, so it's going to be a longer episode regardless. So I guess, Chase, what's one of your big takeaways, whether it be a player, a position group, whatever it might be, when it comes to free agency? What's one thing that's caught your eye?
So are we going specifically free agency or like trading in general? Just
that counts as well. That counts as well.
I'm between kind of two things. So I'm gonna bring out both, actually. So sorry, because I just can't decide which one I want to talk about. So in terms of, we'll start with the free agency part. Just the amount of running back movement for guys that are starting, quality guys, it's been crazy. I mean, Derrick Henry on the move over to the Ravens is just that's going to create the world's most broken combination with him and Lamar. But Saquon, Tony Pollard, those guys on the move, Josh Jacobs, Aaron Jones, there's a lot of really talented backs that are going to be in different schemes, different positions next year. It's going to be really interesting to see it. In terms of fantasy football, it really shakes up that landscape because that the Titans, they're gonna run Derrick Henry 30 times a game, or how Josh Jacobs is going to use the Raiders, where now that they're kind of entering this whole brand new system. You don't really know for sure what what's going to happen. So I'm really I kind of surprised, intrigued with how much movement there has been there. And then in terms of the trade market, I mean, just the price for quarterbacks has been pretty low. I know we're all trading guys that are going to be kind of backups, but still, I mean, only getting a 6 for Fields. I mean, it was low draft capital for Sam Howell. I mean, Rondale Moore for Desmond Ridder. It's just weird, really weird values for quarterbacks right now.
Yeah, and I'd like to comment on both of those. So great job bringing both up. I feel like 60 to 70% of those running back changes have hurt someone in some way. I feel like all of the really good running backs, they went from, their sole running back room to a different place where either there's competition or there was a young guy that we were hoping to see good things out of, and now, it's going to be tough. Like Roshan Johnson, really hoping that we could see some good stuff out of him.
Yeah.
The Bears go get DeAndre Swift. Now, does that completely rule out Roshan? No, they're different players, but it would have been nice to see something like that. And then you have teams that let their top running back go, and now they're stuck with nothing, i.e. the Cowboys. Like, they're just cool letting Tony Pollard go. Not that Tony Pollard was great or anything, but, they're not sitting in a great spot. Who's the Giants' backup? Because Saquon's gone now.
I mean, it was Matt Breida, right? Like that's not who they had. Unless I missed the signing.
Yeah,
I don't know what else they had.
I got no idea. And this is not one of the running back classes that you feel comfortable going into with no top tier running back, So it was just a weird one. There's going to be a lot of guys that are going to have opportunities this year, and we're going to start seeing some weird draft capital. We might see some absolute boom candidates in the later rounds of fantasy drafts just because they're going to have the full workload that, a Saquon would have had if he stayed in New York. But now that he's gone, we're going to see a big switch up. So very interesting there.
Real quick, I'm going to interject to let you know who the Giants right now number one running back would be. It would be Devin Singletary.
Ooh, Devin Singletary.
I'm assuming Evan Gray would be the number two, and either him, Deshaun Corbin, or Gary Brightwell. That's who they have.
Not great. Speaking of running backs, Alexander Mattison signing with the Raiders. So anyone that was slamming Zamir White season, you are going to have a little bit of competition there. So
he's not any good. So
either is Zamir White.
Zamir White is him, dude. He's a dog.
I want Zamir White.
Zeus.
I want Zamir White. Yes, and it was Zeus all throughout college, and guess what he did? Nothing. I want Zamir White to do well. I really do, but I'm just not too sure. I wouldn't put my money on the line on it, I guess. But when it comes to quarterback, yeah, I mean, it's really weird seeing so many young quarterbacks get moved. Howell, Ritter, Kenny Pickett, Justin Fields, all these guys on the move. A little bit strange, especially the Pittsburgh situation. Kenny Pickett, he's told, at least this is what I've read, he was told earlier, maybe a month ago, that they were going to bring in the right people, going to bring in the right supporting cast so Kenny Pickett can truly have a, do or die season. And then they bring in Russell Wilson and tell Kenny Pickett immediately, yeah, Russell Wilson's our starter. And so he's like, okay, well, I'm going to be traded. And then Justin Fields, apparently, they were getting offered much more than a 6th-round pick for Justin Fields, and Fields said, no, I want to go to the Steelers, and that's why the trade was done, which is a bit weird, seeing that the Steelers have Mike Tomlin and Arthur Smith, which doesn't scream offensive creativity.
Yeah, I really don't believe this whole Justin Fields thing. It feels so, like it just feels so weird. I'm someone trying to build a career in this sports thing, and yeah, you want to do right by people. You're not in, the right people, I should say, like someone who's doing, the way I'm doing. I'm not in here to screw anybody over. Like I don't want to intentionally, host somebody like telling Kenny Pickett, yeah, we're gonna build around you, and then all of a sudden just tell them to kick rocks. Like that's not what I want to do. So when it comes to the Justin Fields situation, if you're getting offered a second or a third, I don't really care. I'm taking that offer. Odds are that team values him highly and thinks they can either use him right now or in another season or so. But and at that point, you're getting higher draft capital for the player too. But instead, you take like nothing to go send him to a team where they're probably still going to use him down the road. I'm assuming this is going to be, a 1-year stopgap for Russ. Let Justin Fields kind of reset and then try to get with him from there. But like I don't see somebody doing that, somebody whose job is already kind of on the line as it is, because there was talk that Poles could have been fired this offseason, but gets to stick around. He's got 2 first-round picks. He's going to be getting a new quarterback in, getting a new quarterback at buys you some time. So, I But still, like, if this year's a flop and like and they have another like 3-win season, like he's gonna be out the door. This isn't really the time for you to like, oh, I'm gonna play nice and I'm gonna get minimal capital back for my team. It just doesn't make sense. So I don't believe it.
Right. And I mean, big moves out of the Bears going to get the likes of Keenan Allen, but also out of the Falcons and the Texans. I feel like those three teams have done well so far, especially when you look at the Falcons offense now. Like, we were both high on Rondell Moore. I don't think either of us had him as like a top 15 pick, maybe not even a first round pick, but we thought he could be a very good player at the next level, like a nice gadget player. They go get Darnell Mooney as well. Kirk Cousins, the new quarterback there. That could be a scary offense and could be set to be that top AFC South or NFC South team immediately. Because, I mean, you got the Saints who are kind of in that limbo area. You got the Bucs who made it last year, but can Baker really keep them going at that level? And then, obviously, the Panthers. They are an absolute mess. They get rid of Brian Burns for, I think it was like a second and a fifth. So, just not looking great there.
I want to circle back to that because that offer that they got in season, I mean, reported, I don't remember if it's guaranteed 100% true or not, but like the multiple first round picks from the Rams to turn it down and then have this happen instead.
Yeah.
What a nightmare. And then now in turn for the Giants, like he's an awesome talent. Yes, so Brian Burns is great, but he has so many other needs. I don't know if that's the trade I go out and make.
Right. I agree with you there too.
So weird. It's been a weird offseason.
It has been. And the last thing I want to say about this free agency so far is whoever Calvin Ridley's agent is, I mean, this guy is the best agent in the world. Everyone should go look to sign with him because Calvin Ridley expected to have a really good bounce back season after the suspension. Really puts on a bit of a dud over in Jacksonville. And then he goes and gets 4 years, $92 million with the Tennessee Titans.
Yeah, it's a bit surprising. I mean, I really like Calvin Ridley. Like I really like his talent, but it just hasn't like it's just kind of like never happened, I guess. So like I like you can think like there's a chance that it kind of happened. You can see that it might happen one day, but like it really hasn't fully happened. So I don't get taking that risk on a guy. I mean, like he's older as it is. Like he came in the NFL as like a 90-year-old. So like taking that financial risk right now, it's strange.
Yep, he's 29 currently. It's weird, but that's just been a bit of free agency so far. Next episode, we might talk a little bit more on it. Still upset that the Lions stole DJ Reader from my Bengals. But regardless, we'll move on. Let's head over to our running back rankings. We're going to start there, finish with tight end rankings. Chase, before we get into the actual rankings, thoughts on the running back class as a whole?
So it's strange because last year we had two elite prospects, two guys I had as top 10 players in the draft class who both, Bijan did the best he could to have a strong rookie season, and I think given his limited opportunity, he did. And kind of the same thing Jahmyr Gibbs. Like he had a limited opportunity, but like it grew more and more as the season went on, and he ended up having a really strong rookie year. And like this year, it just I don't know. Like there's a couple guys I mentioned you pre-show that I think they can come in and be a team's number one. Like I think they have that ability, but nothing's guaranteed here. I think that Bijan and Gibbs were kind of locked in though to guarantee, so you know what you're going to get. These other guys, you can see the path to them having success. But that path isn't necessarily paved and cleared. There might be a little bit of debris in the road. So you just don't know 100% for sure. But overall, there are more players that I think can contribute than what I thought there was going to be based on how people were talking about the class. But it's just not going to necessarily be in that, true number one type role.
Yeah, I can agree on that end. I think guys are going to be able to actually get some playing time. But to see, more than, for me, more than two, maybe three of these guys to be that featured number one back. I think, this is not the class you want to do it. Also, it's just kind of weird because a lot of these guys were really highly touted names a couple years back. And now we look at them and it's like, okay, these guys aren't as I expected. They didn't take that continued jump in development each year throughout college. So it's going to be interesting to see how they do at the next level. A lot of these guys are really young, and then there's some guys who are a little bit older as well with some real nice play time under them. So let's start it off, Chase. Let's go 1 to 8, you think?
Yeah.
Okay, let's do it.
So my number one, I hope he's your number one too, but I guess we'll see. Blake Corum out of Michigan. I mean, he's just the guy that stuck out to me the most as just being the most consistent player, having the best career overall in college, that has the most translatable assets. Size wise, at 5'8", 205, obviously you'd like him to be bigger, but at that height, with that build, the compactness that he has, the durability shouldn't be much of an issue. I know he had a bit of an injury history in the past, so like really just by like not this last season, but the one before. But the like the durability in terms of what's to come shouldn't really be too much of an issue in that aspect. But he sheds tackles well. I mean, he's a pretty strong dude. He can juke. He may not be the fastest guy, but he has enough speed to do some damage. And he's very smart behind the line of scrimmage and getting in into open space for me. Like I think he really understands an offense well. I think he can read defense. I think he can react really quickly. Just the one thing that's going to kind of hold him back from being the dude is I think he needs to still improve that pass catching a little bit more. I think he needs to help out a little more in pass protection too, and then just kind of refining those skills and just becoming more consistent and maybe trying to find another gear if you can. Maybe learning to break another extra tackle or two, because it's going to get harder in the NFL. But as of right now, I mean, he's one of the guys that I think has the best chance of coming out to be number one.
I think Blake Corum is the best running back on day one when it comes to this running back class. However, he is my running back 3 just because when I think of longevity, potential, size, everything like that, I got 2 guys that come above him. But I do have Blake Corum as an early round 3 pick, so that'd be mid day 2 for him. I mean, he's a great vet. He's got the vision. He knows exactly what to do when he's on the field. But you kind of talked about it when it comes to his catching ability. Also, just I put it here. Where's it at? Sorry. He's very willing to do everything, but you can only be so good at something until your body fails you. And I saw that on tape a bit with Blake Corum. He did a nice job engaging blocks when it came to pass blocking, but he's small. He got beat often. When it comes to pushing piles or being able to break out of some tackles where he can't use that elusiveness, but rather he has to just keep the legs churning, he's not as great when it comes to that. But, I mean, he's probably the smartest running back in this class, and he does everything. He likes to, put his head down and get dirty with the ball in his hands, but when you're just 5'8", 205, you're going to struggle when you're going up against everyone in the NFL right now is 5'11 plus. So I don't know. I like Blake Corum, but I don't see him as that true number one. I see him a little bit more like a change of pace back while being very smart.
Yeah, and I see him more than a change of pace. Like maybe you can argue he's a 1A, 1B type and he's the A in that category. But I think unless he gets drafted to a team that already has an elite guy, odds are he's going to be the dude that they're going to trust a little more. Like, if you send him to, I don't know. I'm trying to think of a good example here.
I mean, he'd be the number one in New York or Dallas for sure.
And I mean, so who do the Bengals have right now? Is it just Chase Brown's at the number one?
And Zach Moss. They just brought him.
That's Zach Moss. Yeah, that's right. And so I think Blake Corum plays over both those guys too. So I think that's kind of the boat he's in, where he's gonna play over some guys, but then there's other guys if that team decides to draft him, and kind of do what the Seahawks did with Zach Charbonnet and just use him as that 1B behind Kenneth Walker. Then I mean, so be it. That maybe that's better for him in the long term.
And I think if we're talking about Buffalo Zach Moss, I would agree. I feel like Indianapolis Zach Moss kind of turned things around a little bit for himself, especially when it comes to the passing game. He was much better out of the backfield and much better in pass pro. So I think you'd be right in a 1A, 1B type of situation if Corum ended up there. But I'm not sure if Corum would be, that lead back over the likes of Zach Moss. But either way, I mean, he's a really good back, and I'm excited to see what he can do. I just also worry about the mileage because he's played a lot of football up to this point, and with his size being a little less than, having that extra mileage might not be the greatest thing.
For sure.
All right, my number one back is going to be Trey Benson out of Florida State. Guy's got prototypical size. Now he's not massive like the Braylon Allens or anything, but 5'11", 220. That's nice size for a running back. I think he does a great job diagnosing when he comes to the line of scrimmage, find those holes. He can evade defenders, breaking into the backfield. I think he does a really nice job, and not many people do a nice job with this, but I think he uses his hands extremely well against defenders, being able to bat away, hands reaching for him, use the stiff arm. I think he does a really nice job with that. He also does a nice job holding up in pass pro. Because he has a little bit of that extra size, he can hold down the fort a little bit longer. A couple of things that are a bit of negatives is his hands, a little bit inconsistent. Like to see him get better there, improve there. And I think if he does, he could be a feature back at the next level. And then also when it comes to getting to the second level, I feel like he lacks a little bit of elusiveness and balance so that if anyone's going low on him, I don't think he's going to be winning that very often. And then your one-on-ones, I mean, your elite backs are going to win a one-on-one every day of the week. Trey Benson, I think he needs to get more consistent at that because as of right now, it wasn't like RB1 type of stuff that we're seeing out of him.
Yeah, and a lot of what you're saying, I think is fair, and like I do like Trey Benson, but I have some reservations. He comes in as my running back 5, which still puts him as a just about mid third round pick. Like I do like the size and speed profile. I mean, running that 4.39 on the combine really helps his stock. But the one question, and there's good and bad to this, is the college workload. It's just so light. I mean, 316 carries, 33 catches over his 3 years playing college football. It's really not very much. You're averaging 105 carries a year with 11 receptions on the year. It's not a big workload. So yeah, it's going to mean good things in terms of his durability. But if you want him to become a feature back, how's he gonna do handling the ball 200 times on the ground, 30 times through the year in the NFL? Like you just don't really know. Yeah, you're gonna have to take a bit of a gamble on this one, but he did have a really nice average, year by year in college, just a 6.4 average in his sophomore season, and then a 5.8 average junior season. Found the end zone really well. That comes out to 25 total touchdowns in his career too. So even on those limited touches, he does find the end zone. So like there's a lot to like, and maybe that lighter wear and tear is a good thing for his long term future, but it's a gamble that you're going to have to take. But I do think it is a gamble that somebody should take because if it works out, it could really work out.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, let's get to your number 2.
So my number 2 is a guy who, man, I thought I was going to get so much better from him, by this time, but nonetheless, I still view him as a second round pick. Braylon Allen out of Wisconsin. I mean, you got to keep in mind that this guy's only 20 years old. He's gonna be 20 his whole rookie season, at least in the regular season. I mean, he's still a baby. Yeah, he got a heavy workload and like entering college as a freshman at Wisconsin. I mean, he just was basically from day one stepped on the campus. He was the dude. Like just give Braylon the rock and just let him figure it out. And like he had a lot of success doing that. But where the problem lies with him is now people are wondering, okay, well, why was there a bit of a step back this year? I mean, when you look at his numbers, in the previous seasons, as a freshman, 1,268 yards on the ground, as a sophomore, 1,242 on the ground, and then this year only 984. But also keep in mind the carries are down too. The average between last year and the year, and then this last season, the year before, those are the same. His freshman year average is averaging 6.8 a carry, found the end zone 12 times. So he's shown it in the past that he's got so much talent. Like he has the great size, 6'1", 235. He has that 4.39 speed, I believe was the number, 4.4 flat. He didn't run it at the combine, but that was another test somewhere else. I can't remember exactly where. but he does have he does have that speed. He is a strong dude. Like he's got ability to catch the ball. He can break tackles. Like he's got a nice skill set. It just kind of disappeared this last year, and it might be a bit of a cause for concern. I'm gonna chalk it up to it was a new scheme that he was playing in this year, so I just think he never got fully adjusted, and that could mean something bad for the NFL. Where it's like, okay, well, he only worked in one scheme. How's he going to work in my scheme in the NFL? And that might be fair, but at least you do have the advantage of he's still only 20 years old. He's still got a lot of time to learn. If he does pan out, he could be a 3 contract running back, which doesn't happen a lot anymore. So it's a bit of a gamble just based on this last season being underwhelming, but it's a gamble that is 100% worth taking.
And I've got Braylon Allen as my 6th running back. Let me actually get the round here for you. So he actually winds up in the 4th round on my rankings. I think the first thing that stuck out to me is you talked about, being in a new system. I just think he was in a terrible scheme. Like, I'm not sure what Luke Fickell was doing with the likes of Braylon Allen. Most of his play this year was he was a pass blocker. He was a receiver out of the backfield. He was taking all of his runs from the shotgun, which you don't do with a guy who's 230 pounds and can get a head of speed. You got to get this guy moving before he hits the line of scrimmage, because if this guy's not moving by the time he gets to the line of scrimmage, then he's going to have a tough time. Like, yes, he's strong. Yes, he's fast. But when you have a train versus when you have a car that's moving, 2 miles per hour, what's easier to stop? Obviously the train. You want to get this guy in your I formations. You want to sit him in the backfield while the quarterback's under center. Let this guy get moving before he gets to that line of scrimmage, because that's where he's at his best. I think he could be, he could have a similar play style as a Marshawn Lynch at the next level and be a fantastic value in this draft. But the things that we were seeing this year in this scheme, and I talk about how it's a terrible scheme, but I think that's part of the reason why he's a number 6 for me, running back 6 for me, is because we got to see his weaknesses on full display. I mean, for his size, I think he should have been a much better pass blocker. I have him and Blake Corum ranked on the same level. I've got the same grade for their pass blocking, and Blake Corum is, 4 inches and 25 pounds lighter. So I think Braylon Allen should have been better there. I think Braylon Allen lacks the lateral agility to make guys miss on the regular. He's going to be one of those where you want to be able to steamroll, and if you're playing out of the shotgun, that's not going to be as easy for him. But I think that his hands, while they could get better, they're a little bit inconsistent. He has proven to me that he's able to have that ability. And I'd like to see him continue to develop that. But I think overall, as long as you put him in the right system, he's going to be a good value for you. But if you're expecting him to be a great pass blocker, to be a guy that's going to be able to make you miss after catching a screen pass, anything like that, I think you're going to have some trouble with him.
Yeah, I get that. He's not necessarily someone that I'm looking to funnel the ball to in the air by any means, but it is a guy where, if you compare him with, like let's go with a prime like Nyheim Hines, for example. Like if you compare him with a guy like that, I think you have a absolutely awesome 1-2 combo where you can give Braylon the ball 200 times a year on the ground, maybe a little more if you need to, and then you can throw him the ball 15 times or 20 times if you want, but to have the change of pace, like also kind of like an AJ Dillon, Aaron Jones combination, that type of thing to be able to offer that, I think that's where he's gonna kind of have more success. But instead of kind of that AJ Dillon, Aaron Jones thing where Aaron Jones was the lead guy, kind of flip it around with Braylon being the lead guy. So I think he is good enough to be a guy on his own if you need him to, but I think you'll really utilize him best pairing him with another strong pass catcher.
Yeah, for sure. All right, my number 2 is going to be Jonathan Brooks out of Texas. This is a guy who has had or does have some medical concern with a injury late last year, but he's super young as well. Similar to Braylon Allen, he's only 20 currently. When it comes to his full rookie year, he is going to hit that 21 year of age, but only 20 currently. I think he's got excellent contact balance. I think that's the first thing that stood out to me. He also tends to explode out of his first step, which, I mean, when you see that, when you see a guy explode out of his first step, he's got to be able to read that line of scrimmage, because if he doesn't, he's going to just fly into the back of his offensive lineman. I think Jonathan Brooks did a really nice job diagnosing the running lanes and being able to have that explosion out of the first step and find that hole. I think that even when he has some troubles when it comes to that, he does a nice job of stopping behind the line of scrimmage and letting those holes open up and then be able to go. But it is a little bit clunky looking because the guy explodes out and then immediately stops. It's kind of weird. But I think he's pretty solid everywhere. He's a nice pass blocker, a nice pass catcher, does a nice job breaking and evading tackles, and has solid speed for his size. But nothing here felt great to me. And I think that's why he comes in at just barely a second round pick for me. He is the worst possible grade you can get to be a second round pick. And because he doesn't have any of that elite traits, and also, you know, being kind of a poor route runner, so he's not going to be your great receiving back. That's why he's going to be dropping here, you know, middle of day 2.
Yeah, I've got him as my running back 4, early day 3 pick. So pretty similar spot in terms of what draft capital is going to be, or not early round 3 pick. Sorry. But pretty similar spot in terms of draft capital between you and I, and it's all the same reasons. Like, he's very well rounded. I think he does everything good, but just nothing great quite yet. He's got some nice footwork, yeah, and I think he can make guys miss, but I think he still has to do it more consistently. But it's another guy where you can spin this as he just hasn't had the opportunity to do so. I mean, it's another guy, only 238 collegiate carries, only 28 receptions. Like, he just hasn't had the workload. So what's he going to do when he gets that workload? I don't know. We're going to see. This could work out, you know, really well in his favor, and this could be, you know, again, another situation where this guy's got 2 or 3 contracts in him because he doesn't have any wear and tear on him. It could be, you know, he just looked good in those short bursts, but once he gets the ball more and more, he actually just doesn't look good. His efficiency goes down. You just don't know. But I do think, again, it's another situation where you should be willing to take the gamble, because, you know, he is at least well-rounded and does have enough of an athletic profile to potentially succeed.
Yeah, and this is partially defending my guys, but also partially kind of just my philosophy on running backs. I'm not sure if having that experience in the college level is going to be something I'm super concerned about. I think as long as you can see the flashes, as long as their vision isn't Trent Richardson level, I'm feeling okay, because running backs seem to be able to pick up the game pretty easily. Unlike tight ends, which, I mean, aside from maybe last year, because we had some amazing rookie tight ends, but tight end was always a position where it was like, okay, this is going to be taken, 2, 3, maybe even 4 years to see this tight end truly shine. It didn't ever feel that way for running backs. I mean, Kyron Williams, he's a 1 or 2 year guy. It took him to actually get going, but most of the time you see running backs come in and they either have it or they don't. And so when it comes to that experience, I'm not as concerned about that as maybe you are, but just figured I'd throw that out there before we head into number 3.
It's not necessarily the experience that's my problem. Because I agree. Like, running back's probably the most translatable position in all of the 5 major professional sports. Like, it's you have an athletic profile and you can probably figure it out, but it's just the limited film is really where it comes down to. Like, it's not, you're not always playing against, the greatest talents in college. Like, you've got some weaker opponents on your schedule. You're playing some FCS opponents. Sometimes you play some Division twos. Like, you've got all that going on. The NFL, yeah, you're going to play some bad NFL teams, but they're still the best of the best. And it's so just only being able to see so much. Like, like you saw a couple of those bursts, which is like, or those flashes, which is great, but you just don't know what he does going against that best of the best if he's getting the ball more and more each year. Like, that's where the concerns lie with those 2 guys. But again, it's not necessarily the experience, it's just the lack of film and seeing how they do, handling the ball that much.
I mean, when you're 250, 300 carries, I think you should be able to, diagnose whether these guys got it or not at that rate.
Yeah, I mean, so he had 187 carries like this season, and if you want him to be a lead guy, which is like 187, like this was like a good sample size for him, so like it's a good sign. But like if you want him to be like your guy, and modern day to have him have 250 carries, like that's just something he hasn't been seen. So like that's all it is. It's just we'll see how he holds up. Essentially, is what I'm looking to say here.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, I mean, I think Jonathan Brooks is one of those guys that could potentially be a lead back eventually, but I don't think this is a guy that should be a lead back for a long period of time. I think there's going to be guys that are better as they come in. But where did Brooks place for you for your running back ranking? Was he your 3, 4?
He was my RB4.
Okay, so let's get to your 3.
So my number three is not someone I really expected to be my number three, but Isaac Guerrero out of Louisville comes in as my number three. 6 foot 221, blazing speed at the combine, 4.33. That speed combined with those measurables, it's fantastic. And he's got really nice footwork. Like he can evade tackles when he's got the ball. He's pretty strong. Given the size of that helps. I think he is someone who is useful in the pass game. Is he like CMC? No, but he's useful enough in the pass game. He's like you don't have to worry about throwing him the ball. Like if you toss him the ball, he can definitely make a play with it. Just overall, he's got a lot to offer. My only I mean I guess two questions. So again, pass protection that does need to improve, and then in terms of just like the vision, the IQ, it was a limited college workload, and he's 24 years old. So how much more is he going to learn about the game? I don't know. We're going to see. And then again, it's another question. Just not having 200 carries. I don't know how he does. Holding up over a season like that. It took him a long time to get to that opportunity. And again, it could be a situation where he's has limited carry, like limited tread on his tires. 231 carries over 5 years, 42 receptions as well. So, like it's not a lot of work. So maybe it's a good thing, maybe it's a bad thing. I still don't know. There's a lot of guys that are in that boat this year, and it's really interesting to see how it plays out. But I could see Guerrero as kind of like I don't know necessarily comparing him to this guy, but like I kind of am at the same time. I don't really know how to explain it, but kind of like a Raheem Mostert. Raheem Mostert didn't have a ton of college carries, didn't really have a ton of NFL carries until the last couple of years. I mean, like he was basically in the same boat in terms of collegiate carries that Guerrero is, and that it took him 4 or 5 years to finally get into a starting role, and he did really well this last 2 seasons. He's done really good. He's found the end zone. He can make plays. I think Guerrero could be, that similar type of player with his lighter workload, but his skill set, his size, his speed. Once he does get a bigger workload, he can really, skyrocket.
Yeah, you want to talk about a guy with no film? No, I'm just kidding. I like Guerrero a lot.
It's fair.
He is my running back 5. I have him just out of day 2. He's at the top of day 3 for me. And that comes with, I didn't see a ton of film on him. He wasn't even on the main source I've been using for film. He wasn't even on there, so had to go deep diving a little bit harder for some of his film. But I love that comparison of Raheem Mostert, because one of the things I have on here for Guerrero is obviously he's got that speed and size, but he's a very one-cut type of back. He's going to make that move quickly, but then he wants to use angles and speed to beat guys at the next level, to beat guys, once he gets to that second, third level. He's not looking to, juke you out or put a shoulder into you. He wants to use his angles and speed, and I think Raheem Mostert does that really well. One of the best in the game currently when it comes to that specific attribute. So I really like Guerrero, and I'm excited to see where he could potentially land. This could be a spot where, hey, if he goes to the Giants or something, maybe we're talking about looking at Guerrero top of round 2 when it comes to dynasty drafts, because, that could be a fun position for him. He'll have the opportunity, and obviously he's got some really good talent. Just needs to improve pass blocking a little bit, and I want to see it more, obviously. 24 years old,
Yeah.
didn't get to see much, but an exciting player nonetheless.
Yeah, and again, it's another guy that continues the same conversation that I had, as you kind of backhanded mentioned there.
Yep.
But it does continue that conversation because it is just such a limited workload, limited film. It's another case of me just kind of taking a leap of faith on a guy, but I do really like the package that he offers, and as you said, like the Giants could be a good option for him, somewhere where I mean, I guess to showcase his full abilities, put it that way. So someone where he's not gonna have a lot of competition. It's just like, all right, man, Nick, you're gonna go and you're gonna figure this out. It could be really telling. He could immediately thrive right away, or it could be, yeah, that was a mistake drafting him and he's out the door right away. It could go really north or south, but I think drafting him in somewhere where he's going to be your number two running back, I think it's kind of a waste for him. I think you kind of have to draft him to give him a shot to be the number one.
Yeah. All right, my number 4, because Blake Corum was my 3. My running back 4 is Jalen Wright out of Tennessee. This is a guy very similar to Garendo, great speed, really has the burst to take one, 99 plus yards if you give him the opportunity. Don't let him get loose. But he is a little bit smaller. I think he does a nice job in the pass game. He's a pretty consistent catcher. I think he's a willing blocker, not a great blocker. Similar to Blake Corum, when you have a smaller size, you can only do so well in that game, that blocking game. But I think he uses his hands nicely, very similar to Trey Benson, using his hands to bat away defenders, give a little stiff arm every now and then. But I think he needs to do a better job inside because it feels like every single run, he just wants to kick it outside. And I get it. You've got the speed to do it, but you have designed runs for a reason. So let's try to use these. Also lacks the play strength. I feel like when someone grabs him, it's going to be one of those where he's going down. Similar to how I talked a lot about the wide receivers this year. Like Roman Wilson, I think, was one of them. If a defender's hand is on you, you're going down. I think that's very the same case with Jalen Wright here. But I think he's got a little bit better vision, a little bit more experience than Garendo, and that's why I've got Wright just barely above him.
Yeah, Wright comes into my number 6. I do agree with quite a few things that you're saying there. So my number 6 running back still it's around 3 guys, someone that is still going to come in and be an impactful player, but yeah, there's just some questions. I think we could use a little more patience out of him. I think his vision could be better. Like, as you mentioned, he wants to bounce to the outside all the time, and when you do hit the outside, yeah, he's probably going to be gone. I mean, he was averaging 7 for a carry this year because of how many big plays that he had, but those big plays aren't going to happen as much in the NFL. The guys are smarter, guys are stronger, guys are better, guys are faster. So you really got to learn to kind of take control of the inside and be a little more patient and let the holes open up instead of just only trying to create them yourself. And it's just something that he doesn't really do quite yet. So I think with a good running back coach, I think with a strong O line, that could really help him thrive. But outside of that, improve the pad level. Just like he stands a little too upright, which helps contribute to him going down so easily. So if he runs with a little more power, a little more intention, I think that can help him last a little bit too. So there's a lot to work on, but there's also already a lot there. I think he's someone that is kind of how I mentioned the 1A, 1B situation. I think he could thrive in a 1B.
Yeah, so it's kind of weird how we got here, but I believe that all 6 of our top 6 running backs have been checked off the board, so we can get to number 7 now.
None were in the same spot either, right?
No, no, I don't think so.
That's very funny. So my number 7, I'm gonna get to his sheet here. Sorry, but my number 7, Bucky Irving out of Oregon, and it kind of didn't expect him to be as on my radar as he ended up being. I like him as like an end of day 2 type guy. Like I'd be willing to take him in that spot for 14 that can use him the right way. But the concerns I get him. He's not the biggest guy, 5'9", 192. There's not a lot of running backs in the NFL that have success under 200 pounds. Like you can just look at the history, and it's just the truth. But he really does a good job despite his size kind of issues. He is a very smart runner. He works his ass off on every single run. I mean, he's battling, he's fighting for space, he's willing to engage guys, and he really can just make a guy miss. Like it's a lot of fun watching him play, but he doesn't have burning speed. So to be a smart guy without burning speed is concerning because, again, as I said, guys are bigger, faster, stronger, smarter, and like if you get a hand on him, like he can go down if he's not going to be able to evade you in time. Like he's going to go down, and it's going to really kind of minimize his usage. I think this is a guy where you pair him with a bruiser type back. You pair him with someone who can kind of do the dirty work, and you give him 100, 140, 150 carries a year, letting him do a little more in space, trying to create that space for him. That's where you'll have a lot more success.
Yeah, and I've got Bucky Irving as my running back 11. I have him as a fifth round grade. I think that he's a pretty talented back when it comes to actually running the ball. He's got good burst and vision, patient at the line of scrimmage, finds the hole well, has a good change of direction and elusiveness, makes the first man miss a decent chunk of the time. But some of the big problems for me, similar to how you were mentioning, he's small. He's not explosive. He ran a 4.55 at the combine, which I think if that's like a low 4.4, we're talking about him in a better light, and I think the whole draft community is talking about him in a better light. I think he underwhelmed at the combine, and then he's by no means going to be a receiving back either. He had quite a few drops in college, and because of his size, he's not great in pass pro. So I think as a runner, he's good, but when you add his size and his ability in the pass game and pass pro, there's just I'm not willing to take the chance on him any earlier than the fifth round.
Yeah, and actuality, I'm depending on how my rankings fill out. He's probably a guy that I'd rather wait to take someone in day 3, to be honest, even though I have him ranked as little like a late day 2 guy. Just because of some of the faults that you mentioned. But if a team does take him, they just got to be smart. They got to be creative. Get him involved in the screen game where he doesn't have to worry about catching the ball with the defender on him or like running downfield. Just get him the ball in his hands quickly. Get him the blocking and just kind of let him work from there. Because if he does get some blocking help, he's got to have a guy one on one. He can juke him out of his shoes 100%. So a team's gonna have to get just a little creative with him and have another guy to pair with him, because if you take him just to be the dude like that, you're gonna flop pretty heavily.
Yeah, so my top 6 backs that we've already discussed, obviously, I had 4 of them day 2 or earlier. I had Garendo and Braylon Allen just out of day 2, top of day 3, but this is kind of where I find my dip. And my number 7 is going to be Kamani Vidal out of Troy. And here's another great comparison for you, Chase. I think this dude and his comparison is just a pinball. Like, he's small, he's 5'8", but he's 213. So bro's round, and he's just so funny to watch because he doesn't have great burst or speed, but he'll get to the next level and you'll just see him like bouncing off defenders. He's got really good contact balance. And it's fun to see him pinball off of 3 to 4 defenders in a single run. I think he's got good vision, but again, with that adequate speed and burst, it's not lovely. But I think he does a nice job in the passing game. He's got soft hands. I think he does a nice job pass blocking as well. There's some times where he takes, poor angles, but I think when you actually get him in front of the guys, I mean, because of his pinball nature, he's going to be able to put a shoulder into you. But I've also never seen someone get so overwhelmed than Kamani Vidal on specifically blitzes. I think it's going to be one of those where if a defender gets by, an offensive tackle in a 4-man front, he's going to do okay. But when it comes to like all out blitzes, I feel like he just loses his mind. So, not a great player. I've got him as a 4th round grade, but I think that he does a nice job catching the ball and being able to run a little bit.
So Kamani Vidal, still don't know how it's properly pronounced, but he was actually one of my college fantasy football dogs, dude. And playing fantasy football like for college, it's not necessarily about just having the top NFL talent type players, because they could be in an offense where they're not getting a ton of work. Having a kid like Kamani who ended up with almost 1,700 yards on the ground, 14 rushing touchdowns, like that's a guy who dominates in the college football fantasy sphere. So I had him on my team. So I had my close eyes on him all year long, and yeah, he was a ton of fun for that level. He was a ton of fun playing against smaller schools, playing at Troy. I think he did a great job. How it's going to translate to the NFL, I really don't know. He reminds me of a significantly less talented Barry Sanders, like significantly less talented. We're going to make sure to really reiterate that point. But like,
You think he's
it's the same type of
significantly
thing.
more talented than Barry Sanders?
What did you just say?
You think he's significantly more talented than Barry Sanders?
No,
That's
nope,
crazy, Chase.
significantly less talented than Barry
Takes
Sanders.
tracker, Graham.
But
Takes tracker.
but like yeah, it's a similar type style where like he can kind of bounce around. Like he can find himself squeezing out of some random holes out of nowhere. But he doesn't have the same top speed that Barry did. He doesn't have the same just absolute playmaker creativity that Barry did. So he's never going to be that type of player. But I think he can be someone that like, he does contribute. He does contribute to the NFL level. I don't have a full like ranking grade on him because I focus on other guys that I had never really like sat down and watched before since I've watched for quite a bit. But I know he's going to end up as a day 3 guy for me. A little bit earlier to mid. But yeah, I do think he's someone that it's not going to hurt you taking a shot on him. I really don't. Just don't expect him to be like your number 1 dog.
Right, absolutely not. All right, last but not least, our number 8.
So my number 8, I have Isaiah Davis out of South Dakota State, and if Isaiah Davis was doing kind of what he did this year at a Power 5 school, I mean, he would be regarded as maybe the number 1 running back in this draft class because he's got the size. I mean, 6'2", 218. He's got enough speed. He's got enough athleticism. It's not necessarily like pure dominant, but like he's got enough of it. But he's strong. I mean, he breaks tackles like it's nothing. He's useful enough in the passing game. He's decent in pass protection. Nothing like elite, but decent. But he's just patient. He's smart. He really reminds me of like a rookie year Jordan Howard, how like he just came and stepped in the NFL and he was just dominant. Like he was just good. Like he was just really good. Helped you in football games. I think Isaiah Davis was that same type of player. Playing at the FCS level. But then there's the problem. It is the FCS level. So is he going to shed that many tackles at the pro level? No. Is he gonna find as much open space despite not being a pure athlete at the pro level? No. There's going to be a lot more complications. It's going to be a lot tougher for him facing that type of competition. But I do see a path where he could end up becoming a little bit of a gem and might be one of those 4th, 5th round picks that end up becoming a starter for a team because he has a lot of the skill set. He has the size. It's there, but it's just we'll see if he does it properly against the higher level competition.
Yeah, Isaiah Davis, not a guy I watched because FCS, and our show very well if you've listened for a while. Chase is like the biggest FCS stan, and me, I'm the opposite. I'm the opposite. So I didn't watch Isaiah Davis, so I don't really want to comment on his play at all.
Go and watch him when you got some time.
I will. But seeing a 4.57 40 doesn't get me too excited, I gotta say. But I'll be interested.
So the one thing I'm gonna say about 40s is it's awesome. Yeah, so like we want speed, but we probably put too much stock in it for running backs because it's not just straight line speed for running backs. Yeah, once you hit that open space to the second level, yeah, then it's going to be about the speed. But you're focusing a lot more on on those cuts, on just on having that patience. So like I think there might be a little too much stock put into the 40. And that's something that I maybe need to adjust for myself going into the future too, because like maybe Garendo is a little bit lower without that 40 time. I don't know, but like I don't think it matters for the way that Isaiah Davis plays. Like I think he's just a guy that can average 4.6, 4.8 a carry, and he's not going to go and just he probably won't have any 99-yard touchdowns, but he's going to run through a couple guys every time. So like I think it has a little too much stock for running backs. I think it matters a lot more for the receivers and the corners. And, if you're looking at scrambling quarterbacks, helps there too. But running backs, I do think it might actually be a little overvalued.
Well, I think it's fair. I'd also push back on it by just saying Dameon Pierce. I think this is a guy who, if he had 4.4 speed, this is a guy who probably has a sole backfield over these past 2 seasons with the Texans, because he's shown the ability to, break tackles. He's got the vision. He's elusive in space, but this is a guy who ran a 4.59, and we see he is quite slow at the next level. So while I agree it is a little bit overrated, I think at the same time, it can show that if you want to be that truly elite back, you're going to be running 4.4 or less, So while, yes, Isaiah Davis might come out and, he could maybe sit in a committee really well, I'm not sure he would ever be a true number one elite back with a 4.57 40. That makes sense.
So I know this is a completely different brand of human being, but Derrick Henry did run a 4.54.
I'd be interested to see what his 40 was while he was at the pros, because I bet it's much better.
I think he's just like Derrick Henry is the dude that, like, he just always gets faster though. So it's like he looks like he's flying because he never stops getting faster. Like if there was like a 100-yard dash, he'd probably hold the record because like somehow he just doesn't lose energy. Somehow he gains energy when he's running. So that's why he probably appears faster at the pro level.
Yeah, probably. But also he's like what, 6'3", 245 or something.
He's on, I think this is through Wikipedia. I don't know what it is, whatever it is. It's just showing on the Google search on the right side, but yeah, 6'3", 247.
Yeah. So he's kind of small. Well,
yeah.
Let's talk from Davis to Davis. I've got Ray Davis as my number 8. I have him as a 4th round pick, a late 4th round pick. He feels very third down back to me. I mean, when I watch Ray Davis, I don't think he's, super explosive or super speedy. I think his vision is only fine, but I think where he does his best work, very similar to Gio Bernard, who was a longtime Bengal, have a lot of experience with his type. He's a really smooth receiver out of the backfield. I think he's got a great route tree. When it comes to the running backs in this class, I think he's at the peak when it comes to your route tree. And even though he does have a smaller frame, similar to the likes of Blake Corum, Jalen Wright, I think this guy is the best at the pass blocking kind of game. So Ray Davis, a very, very like one type back here. He's not going to be your number one back by any means, but I think this is a guy that you could throw in on third down if you need a key, 3rd and 5, or you need a key block. I think this is a guy who can do it.
Yeah, he comes in at my running back 12, 5th round pick for me. And a lot of what you said, I do agree with. I think we both kind of imagined him going in a relatively similar spot because he's a little bit earlier 5th round pick for me, but still 5th round pick. And here's kind of my gripes. I think he's going to probably be a one contract guy. I mean, he's turning 25 in his rookie season, so like he's by the time that contract's over, he's going to be 29, which is just wild. It's kind of funny for a running back to do that. No running back should ever let themselves get in that situation. But he's limited to kind of just being a pass catcher. Like, he's not someone I want to give the ball to more than 80 times a year, like on the ground. I'd rather he catch the ball, or run the ball twice for every catch that he has. So like if he's running the ball 60 times, he has 30 catches. Like that's what I would want him to be in my offense. And yeah, helping out in the pass pro, I think it's something that he can do too. And where my concerns come with the carries is, he didn't really start having a ton of success on the ground until he became, a 23, 24-year-old senior. That's the first time that he broke 5 yards per carry. So as a runner, it's just nothing special. It really isn't. It's just a guy that you're going to have to use as a receiving option. You can put him on the field on third downs and don't really use him elsewhere.
I agree 100%.
It's hilarious because when we talk about like receivers in this class, or like our number 8 receiver is someone that we're saying is a guy that, he might be able to be number 1 one day, like blah, blah, blah. And then we're talking about our number 8 here, and all I did was dog on him. And you're like, yeah, I agree.
Yeah. I don't think he's, I don't find a lot of these guys after those top 6, like I mentioned, to be, great by any means. So, regardless, let's not move on to tight end because we're already sitting at an hour. So let's go somewhat quickly. Thoughts on the tight end class, just overall?
thins out very quickly. I actually am surprised that my number two tight end came with the grade that he did. I knew it was gonna be my number two, but came a little higher than I expected, to be quite
Oh
honest.
boy.
But yeah, after tight end three, there's nobody else that's in day one or two for me. So it thins out pretty heavy.
I would agree that after tight end 3, no one comes in at day 1 or oh, excuse me, nope, never mind. No one would come in round 1 or round 2 for me, but I do have a couple of late day 2 picks for tight end. But we're doing 5, so let's just start it off. Number 1, pretty clear here, pretty obvious. We're going AJ Barner out of no,
Eh,
no,
I mean, maybe not.
Brock Bowers.
Different B last name. There
Yeah,
we go.
obviously.
Yeah, like just just a football weapon, man. Like that's how exactly I explain him. He's athletic, he's smart, he's strong, he's creative, and I mean he's just flat out talented. Sheds tackles with ease. He creates well in space. He can line up anywhere on the field, like including the backfield. Like he took carries. Like he lined up as an H back, which is just hilarious. But like he did well back there. Like you can use him. He's like the Debo Samuel tight ends, man. Like just run. He can run a full route tree. I mean, he does just everything well. All he's got to do at the NFL level is develop his hands a bit more. Just a couple concentration drops. Just make sure that he's got some softer hands. That he's really focusing on that ball a little more, and just improve the blocking. And like he's someone who can be an all pro year in and year out. I mean, he's coming in day one as an immediate impact guy, someone that I would really be shocked if he's not a trusted weapon in any offense, even if you already have, like a Travis Kelsey type player. Like if the Chiefs for whatever reason somehow drafted Brock Bowers, like they'd still find a way to use him. Like they throw him in the side, they do whatever the hell with him. Like whoever takes him is going to use him unless they're Arthur Smith.
Yeah, and real quick, while I'm going over some of my thoughts on Brock Bowers, look to see where Bowers would place amongst your just pass catchers overall in this class, and we can talk about that here in a second. But what I wrote down for Brock Bowers kind of explains it all. He doesn't have a very impressive frame. He isn't going to show Pitts level athleticism. He isn't as strong and powerful as his former teammate Darnell Washington, but it doesn't matter. He's just so darn good. Every aspect of his game will translate, and when your worst attribute is still graded as great, there's something special. I said say hello to your QB's new best friend because, I mean, Brock Bowers really can do it all, even when it comes to his worst attributes. Potentially, his blocking, I think he's still a great blocker, and this is a guy who he sits at my number 1 tight end over the last 2 years. Like Sam Laporta was fantastic. He was one of my guys. I had him as my tight end 2 last year. And obviously he's shown some great play last year. Same with Dalton Kincaid. He played great. I think Brock Bowers is going to be on that same level as a rookie.
Yeah, 100%. He's also my number 1 tight end in the last couple of years. And he comes in as my 4th receiver for the draft class. I do have Marv, Odunze, and Neighbors all ahead of him.
Okay.
But he does come in as a top 16 pick, locked and loaded for me. Top half of the first round is where you should go. Anywhere after that, then you're getting a great value. He's kind of like the Amon-Ra of tight ends, where like just Amon-Ra, yeah, not the biggest, not the fastest, not the strongest, but like he's just a dude. Like he wants it more than everybody else. He's just an absolute menace. He's smart. He's never gonna quit. He's never gonna stop working. And like that's what Brock Bowers is for tight ends. Like he's just it would be very shocking for him to fail in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah, absolutely. Brock Bowers, he would come in as my pass catcher 3, just above Malik Neighbors, just under Rome Odunze. All right, let's get to your number 2. I know who it is, and I disagree.
Yeah, I kind of now I'm thinking about. I kind of remember you mentioning something about not liking him like a month or so ago. But Ja'Tavion Sanders, number 2 tight end, out of Texas, actually comes in as a late first round pick for me. Believe it or not.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. It's someone that again, all said and done. I'm guessing the way my draft board's gonna shake up, he'll not be the number 32 player. How this tends to work is each year I end up having like 35 guys that I grade as first round. That's kind of the rough number. So I'm guessing he's going to end up like where his grade is. He'll end up being in that like 33, 34, 35 type range if I have that number again. So and a first round guy, someone that you take day two and you I think get a nice value on. But I mean, he's projectable to the NFL. I mean, he's better as a pass catching tight end, but he still has the skill set. He still has enough strength. He still has enough tenacity to go and get engaged in like protection. Like he's not some menace of a blocker, but like he's willing to do it. He can get the job done. He's good in contested catches. He can outrun some defenders. He can outrun linebackers. He can do some damage in open space. And keep improving that blocking, strengthen up a little bit. And I think he's just someone who comes in and makes a really nice impact. I could see him being a day one impact guy 100%. Is he going to be 80 catches for 1,000 yards and 6 touchdowns right away? No, probably not. But is that something that he can do year in and year out after that? I think it's very possible.
Yeah, I've got Jatavion Sanders as my tight end 4. I have him as a third round grade. Look, I think he's a very fluid athlete. He's got above average speed and burst. I like his change of direction. I think he's got really solid hands. There were a couple concentration drops, but it wasn't anything huge. I think he's got dropping contested catch ability. I mean, this is a guy who, he's going to make highlight reel type plays at the next level. I truly do believe that. And I think he does a really nice job blocking when it comes to actually being on the line of scrimmage. But this is where we kind of get into our bads. I think he needs to beef up a little bit. He needs to put on more strength. I think his routes are pretty meh. And part of that is because he gets knocked off his routes so easily. He doesn't seem to be able to hold his position very well. And then when it comes to like swing blocks or having a block in open space, ooh, I have it listed as terrible, often whiffing, which I stand by. I mean, when it comes to those swing blocks, when it comes to any type of moving block, he just takes bad angles and whiffs on that. And then also, he has not shown a great rack ability. Once he has the ball in his hands, what can he do with it? He hasn't shown any supreme ability at that. He has the athleticism for it, so I don't doubt that he could grow that ability at the next level and become pretty solid in that area. But as of right now, we just haven't seen it. So this is a guy who right now projects as a skinny guy that can catch the ball well, and that's about it.
I mean, calling him a skinny guy and catch the ball well, he still weighs 2 pounds heavier than Brock Bowers did at the combine. So that's kind of garbage thing to say, but whatever. We're gonna
Brock Bowers doesn't get pushed off his routes easily. Brock Bowers also can hold blocks easily. So,
I think you're discrediting his route running and his blocking too much. It's not Brock Bowers level, sure. That's perfectly fine. Like, nobody else in this class is, but it's still better than you're giving him credit for. And the routes he's going to run in the NFL, he's going to be just fine. He's going to go to an offense. I mean, there's not really outside of like the Chiefs because you have Travis Kelce and the Ravens who have Mark Andrews. Like, he's not going to be running ridiculously intricate routes. Like, it's not that big of a concern. Like, I'm really not worried about that. And then again, as you said, the contested catch, even if he does get knocked off his routes, as long as the ball's going somewhere in his direction, he's probably coming down with it. And I do think that he's got. I've at least seen more glimpses in his open space and once he has the ball, in his hands than what you have seen. So I project him as being someone who he can be a Pro Bowl guy.
I think he has 4 broken tackles all year, which isn't great.
I think he can make guys miss more than their average tight end is the thing, though.
I mean, okay, average tight end, but I mean, when you look at the average tight end right now, who is that? Hayden Hurst?
I'd say he's below average. Like Hunter Henry, there's the average tight end.
Hunter Henry hasn't been good since he left the Chargers. I think the Chargers. Now he's on the Patriots. All right, my number 2. That's going to be Jaheim Bell out of Florida State. This is a guy who's a little bit smaller. I think he comes in at 6'2", 241. So obviously he doesn't have that prototypical size that you want to see out of a tight end, but I think this is going to be a guy. Similar to how we were talking about Chig Okonkwo a couple years ago, could be a better athlete type of Kyle Juszczyk type of tight end fullback combo there, but very fluid athlete. I love his release. I think he's got really good route running and a great ability to pick up yards with the ball in his hands. And I think he was, outside of Brock Bowers, I think he was by far the best tight end when the ball was in his hands. I think he did a great job there. FSU used him all over the place, used him in screens, used him in sweeps. His rack ability was fantastic all across the board. Couple of the issues, he had some concentration drops. Also, because he is smaller, he doesn't have that range when it comes to his catching. And, when it comes to the blocking game as well, he wasn't keeping up as nicely as I would like to see. But no matter, when you have the ball in your hands and you make plays, I'm going to covet that very highly. I have Jaheim Bell as a late round 2 pick, but nonetheless, my tight end too.
Okay. Jaheim Bell's my tight end 7, coming in as a mid 5th round pick. So
Yikes.
We're in a little bit of different categories here.
We are. Apparently you didn't watch him very well.
I watched, and it's not for a lack of not liking the player. It's more of a concern of how's he going to translate it to the NFL, because the size, it's just not there. There's not many tight ends, at that height that are going to go and have a ton of dominance, right, especially right away. It's something that, it takes some time. You have to figure out how to use him, which then transition to the next point. How are you going to use him? Like, you have to be creative with him. And if someone's willing to be creative, that's awesome. That's great. But like, you got to find 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 different ways to use him. It's not just like, I automatically know he's going to go here. Like, you have an X receiver, like, oh, I know that guy's going to be my X receiver. We're locked and loaded. No, like, you got to find a different way to use him on basically every single play. Like, there's not one thing I'm just trusting him. I'm not trusting him as like, I'm not trusting him on the line. Like, he's not someone that I'm loving on every blocking play. Like, he's just like, I don't know. I just don't see him coming in and playing like a tight end role is where my concern lies. So if you can get him to maybe shed some LBs and find some sort of different role, like use him as you kind of said, a use check, like, and use him more as that fullback role, and maybe that makes him more appealing and more of a useful player. But like, if anyone's trying to use him as like a tight end, they're gonna fail.
No, I think you should try to use him as a modern day tight end. You're Kyle Pitts. Line him up in the slot. Why not? Line him up. He's not going to be your tight end that's going to sit on the line like a Michael Mayer, no doubt. But if you're going to use him in sweeps, use him in screens, like we saw him used in Florida State, I mean, he's going to have success. I think he goes to a team like a San Francisco with an offensive-minded head coach, maybe go to Green Bay. I mean, these are two teams with, elite tight ends. So maybe not those two, but guys that have that offensive creativity, I think no doubt we'll be able to find this guy and use him as a weapon, because when he has the ball in his hands, I mean, he's better than everyone else in this class except for Brock Bowers at that tight end position.
Yeah, and as prospects, I like Chig Okonkwo significantly more. I just saw him translating more. Watch Jaheim Bell, like, I see a path where it could work out, and like, I think there's a chance I can be wrong on this one, but I'm just leaning more towards I don't see it more than I do see it. It's really kind of what it comes down to. Like the hands really do need to improve, and I think you like his route running more than I do. I don't know. It's not for a lack of talent. It's just more for a lack of like translation, I guess.
Oh yeah, I mean, his route running is significantly graded higher than Jatavion Sanders for me, and I'm sure you're quite the opposite there. So shows differences there, and we can agree to disagree on that. But let's get to our number 3.
So my number 3, I have Cade Stover, Ohio State. This is the last guy, as I said, that I'm going to have as one of my first 2-day picks. Now, it's pretty similar size to, the other top 2 that I have, coming in at 6'4", 247 at the combine. Has a nice, general athletic profile. Like he tested well. Like he has a good 40 speed in the past. It just kind of a really well-rounded like pass catching skill set. I mean, he moves well, solid route tree, like nice hands. Just kind of he does all that stuff well. Um, and in terms of being, when he's being used as a blocker, he does a generally good job too. Yeah, he still needs to improve at it in order to improve his full effectiveness and his ceiling at the NFL. But generally speaking, he does an all right job. Just he just needs to take everything at least another step higher in order to kind of become like a feature tight end. Like everything he does right now, it's all perfectly fine. If he stayed this exact talent level, he comes in and he's your number two tight end. You can get him the ball 25, 30 times a year, and he's not going to hurt you. But if he can improve those things a little more and just kind of take it the next step in every aspect, he can become a pretty decent weapon.
Chase, are you ready for me to rip you apart?
I'm so excited.
Okay, well, it'll have to wait because I agree. Cade Stover is my tight end 3. I have him as a late round 2, early round 3 type of player. I have him as a B-rated Michael Mayer. Like, I think that he's very good all around. He's a little bit of a stiffer athlete, which I think hurts him a little bit. And, as being B-rated, similar to Michael Mayer, he's not as great in the blocking. He's not as great when it comes to his route running and his ability after the catch. But I think he is just such a nice, well-rounded tight end that he's going to be able to come in and play a little bit for you and hopefully continue to develop and, become that feature tight end. But yeah, I mean, stiffer athlete and does things nice. He's a well-rounded player up to this point, and I'm excited to see where he goes to the next level.
Yeah, we're pretty similar pages here. If someone like I got him early round 3, so if someone needs a number 1 tight end and like you take the shot on him, I think you just need to be prepared that he's maybe not coming in wow you year 1 and don't give up on him. But as long as you're patient, just let him fully get acclimated to the NFL. Give him a year, and I think he start becoming a lot more productive.
For sure. All right, who's your number 4?
Number 4, I have Benson out of Kansas State. It's very similar size profile yet again, 6'4", 250. Overall a pretty good athletic profile. He's not a speed demon, but he's had tested really. His 3-cone was really strong. I mean, he's an elite jumper, which means he has that explosiveness. The long speed might only be like good and compared to great, but like he does at least have that athletic profile behind him. And kind of the same thing as Case Over. He just does everything well as a pass catcher. Like in terms of using that modern day tight end, does everything just fine. Like he can catch the ball. He can run some routes. He's not going to have too bad of drops. He can break a tackle. He can do a little bit in space. It's like he does all that good enough. Does all that well enough. But he still needs to improve. Like all those things need to take to the next level yet again, and the blocking and the strength just in general, those need to improve too. So it'll be something that kind of holds him back from making a day 1 impact. I've got him as an early 4th round pick, so I think just give him some time, let him figure his stuff out. But who knows? He could maybe become a sneaky little decent option in an offense.
Yeah, draft capital, we have him very similar. I've got him late day 2, early day 3. He comes in at my tight end 6. And I think
your tight end's way better than I did, dude. Wow.
And I feel like a lot of these, a lot of the things you said, very similar. I mean, he definitely needs to do a better job in blocking. He tends to take bad angles and lunges a lot. I think his route running is not great. He gets nudged off pretty quickly. And also, the one thing that just pissed me off all the time is anytime he was looking back at the quarterback and wanted to like find space to have his quarterback hit him, he just sat in horrible holes. Like there'd be like 3 guys surrounding him. He's like, all right, I'm going to plant my flag here. Quarterback, get it to me. It's like, no, what are you doing? Where are you, dude? But I think he had reliable hands. I think open field, like movement, change of the direction. I think he was all right. I think he needs to improve there. But overall, I think he could have some upside.
Yeah, we're pretty similar boats there.
Yeah. All right. Let's get to your number 5. We already talked about my number 4, that being Jatavion Trashners.
Okay. Well, so my number 5 is someone that you actually jokingly mentioned in the beginning of the show, AJ Barner.
Oh,
and
no.
It's certainly not going to be because of his pass catching abilities. but it's someone who is going to be a lot more of a beloved NFL tight end than a fancy tight end. He is, yeah, a step back from the other guys we just mentioned in terms of his pass catching abilities, but he's also a step up in terms of his run blocking. He's a strong leader. He's very tenacious. He's got a smart, he's got a good grasp of the game. He's someone that speaks, he speaks very well. Like when he's talking about the game, like he understands it really well. And he was a captain. Yeah, that was at Iowa, I believe it was, right? Yeah, it was a captain at Iowa before transferring to Michigan, and was just on a national championship winning team around some really talented players, around a great coach. So I think he's carrying over a lot of good traits in terms of like helping a team in the positive direction. Maybe not necessarily always in the football play, but like in that kind of off the field type aspecting, types of the teaching, the coachability, blah blah blah. But I still do see enough ability in the blocking game with some ability as a pass catcher where yeah, he might only end up with 20 catches on a season, but he's going to be more of a positive than a negative because of what else he does.
Yeah, and I'm not necessarily looking to draft a guy to, be a good leader and a good coach. But if that's what you're looking for, great.
I mean, you're completely disregarding me speaking high on his blocking, dude. Eat rocks.
Yeah, I don't know. I've got AJ Barner as my tight end 9. Didn't see a ton in him, but also you were talking about, oh man, you got your tight ends a lot higher than I do. Until we get to my number 5, which is going to be Theo Johnson out of Penn State. I'll just read the whole thing for you because I think it'll really show you. Usually I try to be a little bit more positive about guys, but here we go. Really good size, tested very well at the combine, but does he play like that? On film, he looked pretty sluggish, having a tough time getting to his top speed, and did very poorly with his change of direction. Hands were inconsistent with some tough concentration drops. Didn't see much creativity after the catch. Although he was a very solid blocker, able to keep his man in front, routes were also a bit more refined than others in the class. There you go.
Yeah, I mean, he comes in as my tight end 6, and I mean, pretty similar boat. He does come in as a late 4th round pick for me, and it's solely because of the traits. It's solely because of the size, the athletic profile, and being a fine enough blocker. But like anything else he does, it's just like I don't know. It's like it's okay. It's kind of
Right.
like really what he's at though. It's like everything's just kind of okay.
Yep.
But if you're looking to take a chance on somebody solely because of traits, a tight end, which that has worked in the past. I mean, you can look at a guy like Jimmy Graham. I mean, that's a college basketball player who ended up becoming one of the better tight ends in the history of the sport. Like you could take a chance on a guy like him, like just solely based off of the size and the athletic profile. But I just don't imagine him blossoming into anything.
And 2 guys that I just didn't see enough out of to put them any higher than where I have them, but I am interested to see what they potentially do at the next level. Dallin Holker and Tip Ryman. I think these guys were used as like one set ponies. Like Dallin Holker, I think he was used more of your receiver. Tip Ryman, more of your blocker. I'd like to see them develop a little bit. I think these are 2 guys that potentially they get drafted, and 3-4 years down the road, we see them actually be able to produce somewhat. Similar to how I was talking earlier, running backs, they tend to take a pretty quick time to, get up and running, whereas tight ends, they take a little bit longer. Modern day tight ends, not as much, but I think these 2 could be some of those classic tight ends that take a little while, but just didn't see enough to put them any higher.
Yeah, I'm in the same exact boat with Holker especially. He's someone that if I had to just like take a gamble on, pick somebody who's going to go day 3 at the tight end position who is going to be a stud. Like they're going to become it. Like he's probably the guy that I would bet on. And it's not me saying that he's more likely to do it than unlikely, but like he's just the guy that I feel like has the best chance. Because a lot of what you said. It's just a lot of similar like attributes profiles to, a couple of the earlier guys that I mentioned, like very similar size to Brock Bowers, and like skill set wise, obviously not at the same level, but like it's, like a lot of that stuff is kind of shown, but it was just done at a smaller school and it wasn't, well, I guess I don't know what the right word I'm looking for here is. Yeah, again, like the blocking you said wasn't great, but like it all just needs to be taken a couple extra steps higher. But there have been guys in his shoes getting the same draft capital that he's about to get that have become NFL stars. So it's certainly not impossible. And he's the late day guy I would bet on.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, well, that's going to do it for the show. I want to thank you so much for coming out and giving it a listen. Next week, we do have our interior defensive lineman, which there's a couple players there that could make some noise. Not sure if it has the depth yet. Still obviously working on that, but there's a couple players that could make some noise in that position group. So excited for that one. But that is it for this one. If you want to stay up to date with all that we do, you can follow us on Twitter at WNP Sports Pod. It's again on Twitter at WNP Sports Pod. If you're listening on YouTube, if you could please give us a like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell to turn on notifications, and let us know down in the comments who's your running back 1 and who is your tight end 2, because I think those are the most hotly contested questions out there right now. So let us know. If you are listening on a podcast platform, if you could please give us a 5-star rating and a follow. We'd absolutely love you for it. Thanks so much for coming out. And as always, we're not professionals.